Good morning. It is Friday, the 13th of March. I'm Maeve McMahon, and this is Europe Today, your daily dose of European news and analysis, live here on Euronews. Coming up in his first comments since becoming Iran's new supreme leader, Ayatollah Khamenei has warned that all US bases in the region should close down or face attacks. In a statement read out by newsreaders, Khamenei said the Strait of Hormuz would remain closed. This as airstrikes and missile attacks between Iran and Israel continue. Images are surfacing of residents perched on rubble across damaged residential buildings in Tehran, and also of residential homes in northern Israel destroyed by Iranian bombs. The UN Refugee Agency then says millions of Iranians have been fleeing their homes for safety as drone and missile attacks spread across the region, with more incidents in Gulf countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE. For more on the ongoing situation, we can head now to Dubai and bring in our regional correspondent, Jane Witherspoon. Good morning, Jane. Thank you so much for joining us. Look, the new Supreme Leader has spoken, albeit via a newsreader. What else did he have to say?
Yes, he made a statement yesterday saying that they are going to continue with the fight and in particular target anyone with links to the US. Now, this comes as they maintain their stranglehold across the Strait of Hormuz. That remains closed and blocked at the moment. President Trump last night did give a statement, though, saying that the capabilities of their Iranian capabilities for the military are all but diminished now. He said that they are quashed.
It looks like there's no end in sight to this war, Jane. What is the overall feeling there?
Well, we are hearing a constant barrage of military jets overhead both day and night as people adjust to their new normal. Yesterday, a US refueling aircraft was lost over western Iraq. There was said to be no fire involved in that, any attacks. Also, this morning, sadly, President Macron announced the first French military death of the Middle East war. Now, Azerbaijan is also another country that has been targeted by Iran, and they are currently hosting the Baku Global Forum. We caught up with former EU Council President Jean-Michel, got that so wrong, Charles Michel, pardon my correction, and he said that Europe cannot continue to be fragmented.
What is going on today, there's a gift for Russia because prices are going up on the one hand, because the attention is more focused on the Middle East today, and it allows Russia to continue its war of aggression. It means that on the EU side, we must be lucid. The world is changing very fast, and we have in Europe to develop our own capabilities. Today we are fragmented, and that's regrettable.
Charles Michel there, the former EU Council President and Belgian politician. And before that, of course, our correspondent live reporting from Dubai, Jane Witherspoon. And of course, European leaders will be meeting in Brussels next week for a high-stakes EU summit that was meant to actually focus on the economy, but now, of course, will be overshadowed by the growing conflict. EU Council President Antonio Costa has sent a letter to EU leaders saying the negative consequences are already being felt in Europe of this war. For more, I'm joined here on set by Euronews' Sasha Vakalina. So EU leaders very nervous now, Sasha. And we also heard Antonio Costa, the Council President, saying that the only winner of this war is Russia. What are you hearing?
Moscow is definitely benefiting from the rising prices on energy, and with the situation around and in the Strait of Hormuz being so tense and escalating, this will continue to happen. Russia will continue to be benefiting and trying to push for those benefits to receive more. Now, it's very interesting what is going to happen with the Strait of Hormuz, because we did hear, as you said, from the new Supreme Leader of Iran that Tehran intends to keep it closed. Now, 2 hours before that address, I spoke exclusively with Iran's ambassador to the United Nations office in Geneva, and he said that Iran does not want to close the Strait of Hormuz, that Iran wants the Strait of Hormuz open. And he said that the only situation that's happening is because there is indeed the war around it. But he said that Iran wants to keep the Strait of Hormuz open, denying everything, denying the closure and denying the intentions to block it. He also denied the fact that Iran attacked the civilian sites and infrastructure across the Gulf. Let's take a listen.
No, I cannot accept that claim. Our military forces have been instructed to exclusively target military bases which are used by the United States against our country. Unfortunately, there are a lot of evidences which shows that those military bases are operational against Iran. And the United States is carrying out different military operations against Iran from those bases.
Ambassador, but there have been attacks by Iran on the airports, on the residential buildings, on the hotels across the Gulf states.
These are not verified. We have been in contact with those states to explain for them what we have done and what we haven't done. And we are ready to share information with them about the operations we have made, about the measures we have taken, and if they have any evidence, we are ready to verify it. There has been a big number of cases that United States or Israel have made some operations in those countries to attribute it to Iran.
We have people on the ground in many of them. We have people on the ground in the United Arab Emirates, in Qatar, and these people, the journalists, our correspondents, have been documenting the attacks on non-military sites.
As I told you, there might be some operations made not by Iran, maybe by United States or Israel in those countries to attribute it to Iran.
What would be the purpose of the US and Israel targeting these civilian sites across the Gulf?
When you are talking about United States and Israel, you shouldn't look for any reasonable argument or any reasonable intention. Their intention is to drag those countries into war.
Ambassador, Iran made drones also targeted a British base in Cyprus, while also NATO air defense systems intercepted 2 Iranian ballistic missiles heading towards already entering Turkish airspace. What about these attacks?
Our officials have rejected this news about making any attack in the space of Turkey.
There is, though, a confusion because we've heard the president apologizing to the Gulf countries.
The president's message was misunderstood. The president's message was clear. He said that we will not attack and we have not attacked any base or location which has not been involved in military operation against Iran. And he continued to be very clear that if any base or center is used to carry out military operation against Iran, we will respond accordingly and will target that location too.
Iran stated that it's been 2 decades that it's prepared for any possibilities of this war, and nowadays the European cities are also within the range of Tehran's arsenal. Are they possibly in danger as well?
No. Iran. But what Iran is doing is just a self-defense. Iran has no intention to attack anybody or to attack any country which is not involved in hostility against Iran. What Iran is doing now at this particular time is to defend itself. And for us, our policy is quite clear. If we are attacked, we will respond accordingly. If we are attacked from any location, then we will attack that location as a legitimate target.
Does that also include, Ambassador, does that also include the European countries where the US forces might also be stationed or they're using them?
Let me make it clear. It has been a policy which has been pronounced and announced by our military forces. Any facility, any base which is used to attack against Iran would be a legitimate target for our military forces.
Ambassador, but within your own country, Iran is attacking its own civilians.
No.
You rejected the claim?
Yes.
But there is proof that the civilians were attacked.
By Iran?
Yes, the civilians in Iran, the protesters in Iran.
What happened in Iran, if you mean the developments in early January, it was not the peaceful protesters who were peacefully protesting in Iran. It was the complicated scenario which was planned and followed by the United States and Israel against the security of Iran.
Iran's ambassador to the UN in Geneva there, Ali Bahraini, in denial there, speaking to our Sasha Vakalina. But now for the humanitarian angle. Coming up, we'll be joined by Ugochi Daniels from the UN's International Organisation for Migration, a former chief of staff at the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees and a UN resident coordinator in Iran. She's now based in Geneva, from where she joins us now. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on the programme. So we're hearing figures like 3.2 million Iranians are on the move to find safety. Can you confirm this, and what exactly is the situation looking like from your lens?
Good morning, Maeve. Thank you for having me. What we understand from the situation in Iran is that, yes, there has been a significant movement out of Tehran to northern parts of Iran. However, these are precautionary movements and people self-relocating as a precautionary measure. This is also because the government had asked people to move for their own safety out of Tehran. So that is what we are seeing, and lots of movement to northern Iran.
And meanwhile, thousands of people are fleeing southern Lebanon. How critical is the situation there? Where will internally displaced people go?
And that's the situation we're really worried about. This is a region that before the conflict had 19 million internally displaced people, and now we have the conflict on top of that. And in Lebanon, 820,000 people are now displaced. We know that about 128,000 of them are in shelters, and the shelters have reached capacity. And while the others have moved and are staying in communities, but there's a lot of pressure, and we're very worried and concerned about the humanitarian needs right now in Lebanon.
And we've seen France, they've been sending supplies and aid to Lebanon. Is that enough?
No, the aid is nowhere near enough to meet the needs and the scale. First of all, what we call for and join the Secretary General is an end to the hostilities so that people can go back home, continue with their lives, first and foremost. And second, while thanking the donors who have provided resources, much more is needed. Lebanon will be launching an appeal today for additional funding.
But of course, as we've been reporting here, the war, there's no end in sight really to this war. And I guess the question is, are humanitarian agencies able to cope with this new humanitarian crisis? And how are cutbacks affecting your work as well on the ground?
We are have significant capacity in the region. As I mentioned, it's a region that has been dealing with displacement. We're closely monitoring what is happening at borders. But yes, you are right. This is an additional strain on us as IOM, but also on the international system because of the funding cuts that we went through last year. The significant needs that exist as compared to the resources that we're getting from our donors. So we continue to appeal for more resources to our donors, to the private sector, to diaspora, because the needs are significant.
And meanwhile, I guess a question on the minds of many of our viewers this morning, should the European Union be preparing for a massive influx of refugees?
We are not seeing that right now. As we've already discussed, most of the displacement is internal within Iran, and within Lebanon. There has been some movement across borders, but it is minimal. So right now, there is no indication that there is any movement towards Europe. However, if hostilities don't end soon, the likelihood of secondary movement is something we will all need to contend with.
And of course, that's what the EU Asylum Agency is also potentially preparing. Ugochi Daniels, thank you so much for joining us this morning here on Europe Today on Euronews. And as the European Union tries to muddle through the dire consequences of a war that it never wanted, there's a pile of business as usual on the desks of EU leaders. Next week, an EU summit that was meant to focus on making the EU competitive again will, of course, be overshadowed by the war. But Ari Jakobianis takes a look at the other issues on the agenda.
Weddings are particular events. Some people fixate about what the bride will wear. But your reporter, on the other hand, is obsessed about the wedding cake. Because, as in the real world, what matters is not only its overall size, but also how big a piece you get. And right now, the EU slice of the global wealth cake is getting smaller. And one proposed solution to fix it is to finally merge Europe's fragmented financial landscape into a single unified market. Or in plain English, instead of baking 27 separate cupcakes, Europe wants one giant cake. The EU will account for only around 13% of the global GDP in 2030, which is below the US and way below China. And foreseeing this, Enrico Letta's 2024 reports argued Europe needs deeper financial integration, calling for a shift from 27 regulatory realities to just one. This strategy aims to mobilize the estimated 10 trillion euros in European household savings currently sitting in a low-interest bank deposits, or flowing into Wall Street. By removing national barriers, the plan channels this money into productive investments, allowing innovative companies to scale up across the bloc without relying solely on bank financing or even moving to Silicon Valley. And this week, France, Germany, Italy, the Netherlands, Poland and Spain, so the sixth largest economies in the EU, pushed to accelerate this agenda. In a joint letter, they are urging Brussels to reach an agreement on integrating capital markets by this summer. But one can ask, why hasn't this cake been baked yet? While the recipe might sound great, member states are still arguing over details. Smaller countries fear the framework could hurt their national markets, and these technical disputes keep slowing the process. However, the discussions will continue among EU leaders during the European Council summit next week. So if you are into money, investment or just baking, stay tuned for more.
Indeed, stay tuned for more. And for more on that EU summit, we're here on set still with our Sasha Vakalina, because Ukraine, of course, has not been forgotten. That's also a big topic on that summit agenda next week.
Absolutely. Volodymyr Zelensky is meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron today on Friday in Paris, and Ukraine will be a big topic for the summit. Of course, also because of this loan, 90 billion loan to Ukraine, which remains blocked and vetoes, and the EU leaders will have to tackle this issue. We'll have to find another way of unblocking the money, as we've heard from Ursula von der Leyen and Antonio Costa, which, as we discussed, will not be even plan B in this case. It's already plan C, D, and so on, Maeve.
Indeed, that loan we've been reporting about for months here on Euronews. Sasha Vakalina, thank you so much for that update. And thank you so much for tuning in to us here on Europe Today on Euronews. That brings this Friday's edition to an end. But stay with us here on Euronews for more news and programmes, and visit euronews.com for more news and analysis. Thank you so much for watching. Take care and see you very soon here on Euronews.